Here's Brody Brazil.
Oh, little soccer. State of the San Jose Earthquakes. I love this. I'm happy about this. And for those of you who thought that I would not include them in this series, shame on you. Soccer needs the love and the attention. And I can't believe it's a sport that we all grow up playing here in Northern California. And then for whatever reason, it just doesn't translate into us as adults, like this being our number one priority in life. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird dynamic. I wish every young soccer player retained that passion for the game, the beautiful game, the rest of their lives, and obviously passed it on. Okay, but that's a side story. State of the San Jose Earthquakes, last year for them was rough. 7 matches in, their head coach, Matias Almeida, dismissed by the team after a pretty mediocre start, but he was around for a couple years. When he became their head coach, that was a big deal. He got a group of players to buy in. It seemed like they were gaining traction, but then they ultimately could never take multiple steps forward. So they had an interim head coach the rest of last year. Luchi Gonzalez just took over. Well, he will take over, I should say, but he just finished coaching with the U.S. men's national team at the World Cup 2022. So it's going to be interesting to see what another head coach brings. And by the way, we'll discuss how many times that carousel has turned around in just a second. But going back to the Quakes, I mean, remember 2012? They were the Goonies? The Goonies never die, and they won all those games late, and it was a magical season. They were a really good team back then, one of the best in MLS. But that was their last dominant season, and in fact, it was one of their last successful seasons, and that's now 10 years removed. They did make the playoffs in 2017, didn't have a great record, to be honest, and in 2020, it was the paused season that returned with MLS is back, or whatever they called it, down in Florida. So I don't even know that I count that, but it just goes to show you how they, as a franchise, have hit a rut. And that's so unfortunate because they have beautiful PayPal Park now. They're just well more established as a franchise. The experience is such. I wish they had that 2012 team, or even some resemblance of it, nowadays in their current setup. And I think that would go a long way for kind of their status and attention here in the Bay Area. So for the Quakes, 9 head coaches in the last 10 years, and they're about to have 10 in 11 years. I just feel like with the whole coaching thing, you know, your players are obviously the ones on the pitch. They get the job done or not, but having some consistency at the very top and as it relates to messages and strategies, no team in any sport does well when there's that volume of turnover at the very top. So without getting too far into the specifics of the X's and O's and strategy, to change things at the top that many times, you know, after so much stability, and Frank Yallop was there for how many years? And that's kind of when the Quakes were really in their stride. And ever since then, they've just had a lot of turnover. Other thing I want to talk about is the Quakes scoring. Last year, they scored 46 goals in 34 matches. So about 1 and change per game. And they ended up with a -8 differential, right? The relationship of goals for and goals allowed. But Jeremy Ebobisse scored 17 times. That's 17 of the team's 46. That's a little uneven and imbalanced and asymmetrical, and it's almost half the team's goals, but you easily get to that spot when you add in Christian Espinoza's 7 goals, right? That gets you to more than half of 46. So moving forward, right, they weren't a bad defensive team. They just had issues scoring consistently, having multiple scoring threats and depth last year. It's the team number, but it's a lot of individual numbers you'd like to see go differently and go up. Prognosis for the Quakes in 2023 and beyond. And we did just see the first post-Chris Wondolowski season. We're now well past the Chris Wondolowski era. So what and who is next? And you look at who was the team's leading scorer for pretty much all of his seasons. Like, it was Wondo. I think there's 2 seasons maybe of all of his years that he was not the leading scorer. Look, and it's a team game too, but you do need somebody to lean on. And I'm interested to know for the Quakes, who is that next player? Have they just signed him? Is that person a year away? Will we see them anytime soon? So I look forward to who is the next like face and foundation of this franchise. There's also this, and I said before that I let off with the popularity of the Quakes. In other markets with MLS, their teams have just rocketed, like from Atlanta, and I think Nashville's had great attendance, if I'm correct on that. But I know that Portland and Seattle out here on the West Coast have. And the Quakes somehow, with a beautiful new stadium and the pitch, 26th out of 28 MLS teams in attendance. And I don't necessarily understand it. Again, the geography, our region, everything that makes us in the Bay Area, and we can't support this team a little bit better, like they do in Atlanta, like they do in Portland, like they do, again, in Seattle. It doesn't make any sense. And maybe it's success. Maybe that's a huge part of it. Maybe you get some more wins in there and you draw some more eyeballs, or a certain player that's a magnet for attention. I don't know the answer, but I would love to see the Quakes have a more packed and filled environment at PayPal Park. And then obviously too, this is a group and a team that's moving on from a prior era. Tommy Thompson and Shea Salinas had both been around for a very long time. Both of them will not be on the team. Salinas retiring, and the Quakes choosing not to pick up the option on Tommy's contract. So for the Quakes, look, let me just pitch you like this. It'd be a good time to get in. If you don't want to be accused of being a bandwagon fan, jump in right now. Jump in while this group is hopefully about to start the upward trend. I hope that for them, and I hope to see you along on the ride as we witness that.